Hi, I'm Kim. I'm the other half of Ravenous Couple.
Hi, I'm Hong, and actually she's the better half of the Ravenous Couple.
Welcome to The Vietnamese. I'm your host, Kenneth Nguyen. Being part of a culture of nearly 100 million Vietnamese people in the world today comes with a lot of pain, proud history, and privilege. Join me as I highlight and explore the Vietnamese experience from all over the world.
Thank you both for coming on. What does it mean to be Vietnamese to you?
You know, that's a difficult question for me, but I just know that I love the culture. I embrace the culture. As a matter of fact, I'm still learning from the culture as well too, even though I'm 100% Vietnamese. But just being Vietnamese, I'm very proud. I'm, very aware of the community, the culture, and I just embrace everything about being Vietnamese, from the food, the culture, to the language and all that.
I've been thinking about that question, and honestly, I don't know. Language, in terms of language, I'm not really good at it. So in terms of language, that's not good. Maybe food is probably a big part of it for me. Is like, sharing a similar set of food. But then I realized, the more we learn about food, the more different Vietnamese people eat, even within the same community. So it's really obviously, maybe it's something that we share, same place of origin, a similar history. So to me, I think about those things when I think, what is to be Vietnamese, and those are the things that I try to share with my kids, because now they're asking me, Dad, where are you from? Where's your family from? So, I do think about those things now that more now that we have kids, and so it's still, I think, a evolving thing, and something that will continue to grow and maybe add to in the future, what it means to be Vietnamese to us. So it's not one question, one answer, I guess.
Yeah, it's an ever-evolving answer, and we'll see, next year, the year after, things will change too, because we constantly pick up new ideas and new facts about who we are, and then I think culture evolves, no matter if you're from, the United States or from France or Ukraine, we're all changing. So how did you two meet?
We met through mutual friends. I went to Michigan. I'm actually from Orange County, and then Hong is from the Midwest. So I went to grad school in Michigan, and so did Hong.
Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan and went to school at the University of Michigan. Go Blue, right?
Yes, go Blue.
And we were several years apart. So initially we only knew each other through the internet, right? Emails, phone calls. And then we finally met actually after like maybe a year of chatting, so this is back when the internet was really young, right? Like Facebook was really young, Asian Avenue and things like that.
Over like 15 years. Yeah.
So we initially chatted and emailed, and that's but the connection was at the University of Michigan, and that's where we met.
So both of you went to University of Michigan, and what did you both study?
I went to dental school for grad school, so I'm a dentist.
Right. So I also went to graduate there. I actually studied history there, but then went to medical school there.
So wait, you studied history undergrad?
Yeah.
And with any emphasis in bio or pre-med?
No. I actually my emphasis was actually in Southeast Asian history, and actually that's where I sort of like had my Vietnamese culture, sort of Vietnamese American identity awakening too, because they had a great course on the history of Vietnam War, and then I took that course, and then they actually had a Vietnamese language course. And so, growing up in Detroit, Michigan, or outside Detroit, Michigan, I was probably the only Vietnamese in my school, and so that was where I sort of, embraced my Vietnamese-American identity there. studied history. Yeah, and I took, of course, the prerequisites, but I didn't really care about being a bio major or anything.
I talk about a liberal arts education on this program quite a bit, and I am always fascinated when I see the results of sort of some liberal arts class, like a Southeast Asian study. And when I study your page or your work and the history and the things that you talk about, what I see or confused about is, and I know that the background that both of you are in the medical field, and it struck me as a very confusing thing for me. I was always like, how are these two medical people showcasing such beautiful art with this history of the food and the lineage? And now it makes sense that you have this, this very strong undergraduate training in history. It has a lot to do with the curiosity that you show on the page. And I'm not saying that medical people or people in the medical field are not or devoid of this sort of angle or perception, but I'm saying oftentimes it comes from this other place of curiosity and learning.
I think that actually is our angle. If you were to ask us, what's your angle? What's
We
your
kind of like avoid that.
what's your angle? It is about
Yeah.
like you said in our tagline, preserving culture and history, or learning about culture and our history through food. And that really is our angle in a nutshell. And I guess that's where the history part comes from me, because I do think that our past really guides our future, and how we see things, and and our past certainly, the more we study our past, the more we realize why things are they are today. Again, this is whether it's the lens of food or the lens of wherever politics, or the lens of or like where we are today in America as a Vietnamese community. The more we study our past, the more we understand why we are here today. And so, yeah, I think that's a really important part.
When you both, I have to ask this question because of the Michigan and the Midwest question or answer that you answered. What's the difference between the food out there, the Vietnamese food, and the Vietnamese food out west here in California, and then the Vietnamese food around the world, and even in Vietnam? Do you have an opinion on that? And this for both of you, would love to hear.
I think now it's spreading a little bit more now that with the supply, Michigan and the Midwest and other states, they're able to get more supply.
Well, Kim grew up. Let me interrupt. Kim grew up in Little Saigon, like Bosa. She's like OG Bosa, Westminster. So
I was used to more of like the supply.
She's been there with like 79 her whole life.
Yeah. So I would say it's Little Saigon, you have more options. There's like a lot more variety options, specialties, and so forth. I think when you go to like other states, they'll have one Vietnamese restaurant, but then they'll try to serve everything. There is that Vietnamese. In Little Saigon, Houston area, where there's more of a bigger Vietnamese community, you have shops that can specialize in just hủ tiếu or mì, or you have much more of a selection. But I would say years back when I went to school, there wasn't a lot of. They would even combine like Vietnamese restaurants with like Laos restaurants, just any just an Asian restaurant. But now it's starting to like branch out. There's more of it. But I would say now that there's more of the supply, they're able to get more of the supply. It could be pretty much similar.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, right? Like I said, Michigan, and back then was there's no Asian American, there's no grocery store that specialized in Asian American products, and my mom, and whenever we had to make something, we really always had to improvise. When we made when she made when she tried to make tofu, because there was really no good tofu out there, she had to build her own press, tofu press, and things like that. With their own banh cuốn pot, like they would just improvise.
Yeah.
They were really, I think that's also another key thing that we think about when we think about Vietnamese food, is that we're very good in improvisation,
Yeah.
very, very good
Making do.
enterprising people,
Yeah.
and
We'll make it
so
work somehow.
yeah, they made it work. They still, even in the early 80s, in the Michigan, we still ate Vietnamese food like every day, 3 meals a day growing up, and so it was pretty amazing.
I
But
was
but
just
one,
used to buying
say it
it.
again, Kim.
I was used to just buying it, like
Yeah,
if I craved it. But when you go to like other states, you gotta figure out how to make it, and that's one
yeah,
of the reasons why we, started the blog, because it
right,
was during a time when I was in college, and like there in Riverside, and there wasn't a lot of
right,
Vietnamese restaurants around. So if I craved Vietnamese food, I had to figure out how to make it, and that's
right,
when I learned how to start cooking. Is because I wasn't surrounded where I can just go and buy it
right.
easily.
So yeah, so then again, even we were met and we were talking long distance and email. Like I was in postgraduate and she was graduate, and we were communicating back and forth from either Michigan, or she was in Arizona and I was in California and in Seattle. We would actually talk about what we like, what we like to eat, and so when we get together, we would make meals at home, or at our apartments, and we would, at that time, again, we were very new, just like everyone. We didn't know how to cook, and we would call our parents, and she would call her mom or your aunt, but we would call them and have them on the phone and guide us as we cook, and after like several times of this, I was like, oh, we need to write this thing down,
'cause we
because like we forget, and when they guide us, they're not very accurate either. They're like, một chút này, một chút kia, and so it was very frustrating, right? And so we just sort of learn on the go, and we try to dribble notes down, but then we'll lose it or whatever. And when you don't cook frequently, it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
And we don't have the muscle memory. We don't have the instinctual cooking that our parents and our previous generation have, but from cooking daily, and so that's really the impetus for starting that blog, because at that time, blogs were really new too, and we're like, we need to put this down for ourselves, and really that was it. We didn't think about it as like, oh, documenting it for other people. It was really more for ourselves, and so maybe, if we ever have kids, maybe, but we really didn't think that far ahead, but we were like, this is just for ourselves, so that we don't have to bug our parents every time and call them and for how much to put nước mắm in and things like that. And so that's how we started the blog and started documenting some of these recipes.
It's amazing how things start sometimes. When you hear the origin stories of these blogs or these channels, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It starts with a simple necessity that you wanted to record the recipes. And so did you name it Ravenous Couple right off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just had a few discussions and we really had very short brainstorming, and again, we didn't have any idea.
Yeah, we didn't have any
idea what we were
plans or
doing.
anything like that.
We don't have any IT background or anything like that. We're just going by the seat of our pants. What does that sound like to you? Does that
What
sound
did you
good? I mean,
think?
I don't know. At first, we were worried that maybe it has some lascivious connotation.
Yeah.
Like maybe some people looking for like groupies or something. I don't know, but I don't think that ever happened. We never, that never happened, and we just made it about the food we liked and recipes that we home style recipes that we were always asking our parents of. That's why we never really for a long time we never touched phở, we never touched bánh mì, and we never touched some of the more common things, because like almost you can find that really easily, and so that's why we touched on a lot of like the home style stuff that we missed, like how to make pickled dưa chua and how to make sườn rang and thịt kho and things like that. Those are the recipes that we thought were harder to find, and those are the ones that we kept on asking our parents for, that we missed when we were away.
When I look at the images on the food, this is the very current stuff.
Yeah.
When we go back to the beginning of your IG account, are there is there content before that that sort of bleeds in from the blog or wherever the blog left off? I mean,
Yeah.
is there an
So
evolution to where we are today?
yeah, like, again, a lot of when we started the blog to now, the blog is sort of like semi-retired. Occasionally we still may post it, but it's very once in a blue moon. A lot of times, people start a blog or start an IG account or a TikTok account, and if they have big aspirations to, write a book or have a TV show, or or even just make it a career, you can definitely do that in this day and age. But back then we never had that aspiration. We always wanted it just to keep it fun, and we have separate careers already, and when the kids came, we sort of like got way too busy for that,
Yeah,
and that's when we transitioned to Instagram.
yeah. And
Ah,
then
got
Um,
it.
we
yeah,
started like including them in like our stories and
yeah.
so forth, and make it like family
So
friendly
so that's
sometimes
where
too.
it transitioned. We
Yeah, so it
transitioned
evolved in
from
that
the
way.
blog to the Instagram
Mhm.
when the kids came.
Yeah,
Instagram is much easier
navigate and
to post
yeah,
quickly, and get your information out there quickly. Whereas a
hmm
blog
you
post,
have to
it's
sit
you
down
sit
and
down, you write, you edit, you
yeah, it takes a
rewrite,
lot
you
of
re-edit.
time. Yeah,
Yeah. So it takes much more time.
yeah. So we praise people that are able to keep that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you first started the blog and you were basically documenting your own journey in cooking and making the food,
Right, right.
Yes.
and later, I mean, in the most current iteration, it seems like I'm not sure where the line of you all making the food versus you all going out to eat and shooting pictures is that like how does the content sort of like
Yeah,
is constructed?
yeah,
I would say 75% or more we make most of the food.
yeah,
And we
Ah,
do go out. So we do, whenever we do go out, whether it's like like a mom and pop shop or like somewhere, fancy or like a destination place, then we'll, showcase it. But mostly, majority of it is mostly home cooking.
yeah. It's
Hmm
definitely home cooking is where home cooking recipes is the blog,
hmm
and IG we tend to just support restaurants
hmm
that supporting restaurants in general is something we like to do,
Yeah.
and business Vietnamese owners
Yeah.
especially.
And that actually,
um,
um, like during COVID, that was we evolved more in like supporting
mm.
like Vietnamese businesses and
yeah,
or small businesses. So that was like a lot more during
yeah.
COVID. Hmm
At what point in the IG journey, the Instagram journey, did you say to yourself, "Oh my God, shit just got real"? Like,
uh,
people
to
were
answer
like,
you
say
to be
again?
honest, we were still really small.
Yeah.
To be honest, we're still really small. There's definitely a lot more Vietnamese uh, Instagrammers or Vietnamese TikTokers that are huge, have a huge following. So I think that's partly because either we transitioned pretty late, but it's also I don't know. We just uh, I don't know. We just post, and we're not really good at um, uh, there are some people that are really good at tagging and doing all these additional things that drive
Yeah.
traffic to us. I don't know. We just post
And just let it ride.
and just let it ride. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
and I could see that, and I can feel that, but I also feel like you guys are socially conscious, and you guys show up to the events that
yeah.
we don't see often food people showing up to. There's things
Oh,
that are
small
Yeah,
out.
events.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Definitely for sure. There's been a in the past, if you look at our timeline or you look in the past, we always had a sense, like you said, like some background of history and culture, but we didn't pass over into that social activism part, until maybe the Rodney Floyd, I mean the I'm sorry, the
George Floyd.
uh, George
George
Floyd,
Floyd.
and the Black Lives Matter situation, and I think that definitely had a little awakening in our account and how we use our account. And also COVID as well. You know, we used it more for like promoting, you know, businesses and Vietnamese, you know, and then, you know, the Asian violence, you know, things like that too. You know, ever since those things, we
were more awakened and aware. So it wasn't
that we have to
all
use our
about food.
platform.
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting now. I didn't realize that George Floyd.
Yeah, actually, we had like actually a bunch of fundraisers. You know,
Yeah, from
we actually had food events where we would actually fundraise for different causes, and so we had several of those before COVID, at least 3 or 4 or 5 of those before COVID. And so
did the community ever step out and say, look, you guys are in the food space, stay in the food space? Did you ever get any pushback for George Floyd or anything like that?
We had occasional comments here and there. Yeah. We get those occasional comments on Instagram saying we're communists and things like that, you know. So you know, that's inevitable, right? It's in the internet, and you know, people say whatever. But yes, but nothing major, you know.
Because our community is very it's very polarized. You know, you're either I feel like you're either with the BLM movement or you're against it. You know, it's and a majority are actually against the BLM. You know, Black Lives Matter. The older generation, the majority of the older generation will refuse to acknowledge the history that we have, or in America with the black power movement, and it's a thing that's very polarizing. So when I think about somebody in the food space stepping up and saying, you know, we're now awakened to another way of looking at things, I feel like there could have been a potential pushback, but it didn't sound like you didn't have that.
Yeah, nothing major, just silly comments here and there.
Yeah, because Kim was like, no. Kim, you're like,
them usually, or block them before she even knows.
Oh, what? Say that again.
I would block them, or do I would moderate them before she even knows about it.
I would get so like, you know, I think I would probably get a little hurt and be like, why would they say something like that? So he probably deleted it before I saw it.
Oh wow, protecting your wife from that stuff. Yeah. So how do you both divide the work, the day-to-day of the blog or the Instagram account?
We actually don't have a plan. I guess it's like whoever gets home from work first starts cooking.
Again, we don't like, again, we're not like professional. Like it doesn't, our livelihoods and income doesn't depend on it. So we only do things if we're already doing it already.
Yeah.
So if we're already doing bun riêu, or we're doing bánh cuốn or bánh mì, then that's when we do it. We don't plan any of it.
A lot of it isn't planned. A lot of it is like what we get on sale at the market, or if someone supplies us with something, they like, like our neighbor, she like wants to give us like 10 pounds of bean sprouts, and we're like, okay, then this weekend we'll go ahead and make so and so. A lot of it is sort of unplanned, but kind of planned depending on what we have. So we don't have like an Excel spreadsheet like
it's only
anything.
And for example, like I usually do most of the photos. Kim does most of the traditional cooking for pho and bun riêu and all that stuff.
But I have nothing to do with the pizza.
Yeah, bread. Exactly. I will do the pizza
more of the
and
traditional
bread.
Stuff.
Yeah, I usually do some of the more non-traditional stuff. Like if you see anything like Peruvian or any Italian or anything like that, then that's usually me. Bread and pizzas are me. Anything crazy like any like a dry aged salami. That's me too.
No wonder, because I was looking at that stuff. I'm like, that's not preserving Vietnamese culture, but I'm like, there's got to be.
So we're definitely not exclusive about that.
What we like, what our interests are.
Exactly, what our interests are, and so.
But I do have to say that the pictures, there's some lighting involved. I mean, like there's some really careful lighting. There's tweezer actions. Like I feel like there's like placement. There's like, it's really thought out. It's not random that you just, we're gonna cook something today and then we're gonna take a pictures of. That's not happening.
lot
There's
of the
never
pictures,
tweezers.
yeah,
Not when you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
There's never tweezers. Maybe we use the chopstick here and there,
Yeah.
but
but
I think it's just experience. To be honest,
Yeah.
we've been doing this so long. To be honest, we started the blog in 2008. We've been doing it so long that
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
just memory. It's
yeah.
just, I
We
guess,
just
having
know
an
what looks
eye.
like. Yeah.
We just have an eye for it, I guess, too. You can say. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't want to like pat ourselves on the back or anything, but um, but it just comes because right now, like I said, we get food on the table, and we literally in the past, I have to admit, like we would sometimes, labor like 10 minutes and take like 30 different pictures, but that didn't last very long. We knew when you have hungry kids and things like that, we really had to cut it down to like 1 or 2 pictures and 20 seconds, of photography and styling, and that's literally what it is now.
And there's no like professional lighting. Everything is
It's just daylight,
daylight
just natural lighting.
and
Yeah.
the table that we're actually doing the Zoom meeting on.
Yeah.
So it's a,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you shoot on the iPhone, or do you have a DSLR?
Pure
Just
iPhone. Pure
I
iPhone.
don't even know where the battery of the camera
Yeah.
is. So
I think in the past we
Yeah.
did do DSLR.
yeah.
But yeah, now it's just.
But then you would have to
iPhone.
upload, and now it's like
Yeah.
iPhone just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. It's a turnkey operation.
Yeah.
So how do you now think about the image of the food? Is there much thought, or is it just basically what you have described?
There's still some thought to it.
Some thought, but
Yeah.
mostly it's instinctual, like you said.
Yeah.
Like it's we don't. I guess you develop a style over time, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, like if you look at our pictures, there's a certain style of how
Yeah.
it looks
And the
how
plating,
how we plate,
but
and
then
things
it
like
doesn't
that.
take it doesn't take long.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
Like I said, our Instagram is not our livelihood and it's not our career, and so we don't treat it like that, and so we really just treat it as a hobby,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't take away. We enjoy doing it, but it shouldn't take away from our lives either. And so it enhances,
Yeah.
right? Instead of
And we still want to make it
detracts.
fun.
So
And get the kids involved as
Yeah.
well too. So it makes it fun.
So it sounds like there's been this journey of just sort of doing what you feel is the right thing to do, and you continue to do that without much intentionality on it being a business or any sort of like there's a through line to make money or anything. But that being said, do you feel like things are developing and you could take it in a direction potentially to make more of an impact?
in the
There's
past, we did have
possibilities.
offers for cookbooks and things
Yeah.
like that. We did have offers, and we've even had offers sometimes to be on different shows or different events. But in general, we've turned them down. Again, we think it might affect our family life and things like that, and so in general we haven't pursued it. It's not one of our outs that we ever considered. In the future, who knows? I think we like being part of the background. We like being connectors and of people, and because I think that there's a huge generation of new talented Vietnamese Americans,
There's a lot
creatives
of talent that we've met throughout.
that we love to promote instead, and we
Yeah.
would love to like connect them instead, and so that's what you see us doing a lot lately, and I think we would rather do that than be at the forefront.
Yeah.
And I can attest to that, because I'll tell you what, you're right what you said in the beginning, where there's a lot of people doing what you do with bigger numbers, but oddly,
And better.
and I potentially you could say better, but but oddly, those people are not the people that in my circles have referred to you. Like the people in my circles have all said, "Why haven't you got the Ravenous Couple on?" And it's always puzzling to me. Why is it that this couple is always being referred to as you need to get them on the show? You know what I mean? I can attest to several other food people that I know in the space with big numbers. And I think we just have to talk about that. I have to address that right now. Bigger numbers don't mean shit to me.
Right.
What
That's true.
yeah. What's important Well, I mean, obviously the signals on the ground for me is like my friends, my important, close friends have said Ravenous Couple over and over and over again. Like, Nguyen Bui, he's a private chef up here in LA, and he
Oh,
speaks so highly of you from like day one when I started this. So he's one of the guys, and then maybe two or three other people in that sort of that range, and then I
Yeah,
started seeing you with Gwemai and all of
yeah.
this other stuff, and we invited you out to our East Films party, and I began to understand like the fabric of the community is really about that moment. I feel like with that George Floyd awakening, and I didn't know that about you two at all. I didn't know the history background or there's this common thread of like making sure that people inside and outside of our world are good, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about food, or it's not just about our art, but it's about the society that we live in that has to be addressed and acknowledged. And I think that's what gravitated me towards inviting you both to our event, and making friends with you and being acquaintances, more than acquaintances, because the impact that you bring, I can see it like roll out in the future, and I can see where this is heading for the both of you.
So, one of the reasons why we kept the blog going so long is that actually the feedback we got from people um, was really tremendous.
yeah.
The private feedback through emails and was tremendous. I mean, we would get emails not just all over the world saying, this is exactly how my mom does it, and and I was never able to get the recipe from her,
Yeah.
or I was never able to get the recipe from my grandma because she passed, or something like
Yeah.
that. We would get, like, I would say, like, so many of those type of
Yeah.
emails. And so that was a big influence. um, and um, and how much some of these recipes reminded them of their youth
Mhm.
and them growing up, and brought back so much great memories. So we had that, but then we also had, I think, partly because of the timing and for the duration we've been doing it. It was during that time, maybe in the early you know um, during that early ages of the internet blogging and things like that. It reached out to certain core people, I guess, because we actually have um, a lot of chefs. I'm not going to name who, would say, they will reach out to us and say, you guys were the inspiration for why we started cooking Vietnamese food, and
Wow.
now we have restaurants.
Yeah. So that's really
And so we
inspiring.
actually, I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of chefs, a lot of Vietnamese-American chefs, and I'll mention someone you know, Daniel. Daniel came back to us. We just met Daniel
From
from some
Songkai.
guy,
Oh, he wrote such a nice.
and
Yeah.
we didn't even know this, but he said he emailed us, and he's like, it was because of your blog and your recipes that I actually decided to travel to Vietnam.
Yeah, and that was so
And then that's
heartwarming.
how he started doing,
God.
so
Yeah.
I was like, what? No way, that's
Yeah.
unbelievable. So
And now look at him now.
no, yeah, look at him
He was
now.
just over maybe like a month ago, and he did like a tasting with us at our house. So it's just amazing how it all connects. Because
Yeah,
little
so
did
Yes.
we know we would ever meet him. Little did we
or
ever
our
know
blog
that
would ever even
like inspire him to
inspire
do
him to
this.
like travel to Vietnam and things like that.
Yeah. So it makes us like so
So that's
proud,
just
and
that's just one example, I guess,
and
of
not a lot of people are like
yeah.
gonna write notes and message us that. So we just hope to have like a little bit of influence, not only on food, but just being good, and
Yeah.
just being, yeah,
Just doing good.
just doing
That,
good.
yeah, and that's we could see it, we could see these things. I think as society we can see it,
So oh, go ahead.
shout out to some guy. Daniel has been an amazing force in,
Right.
that guy could be doing anything actually. That he
Yeah.
could be doing
Yeah.
anything. He could be an art history professor. He could be a linguistics professor. He could definitely be a food critic. He is so good at explaining the Vietnamese culture, and for such a
Yeah.
young man, you know,
Yeah, he's
such a
so
young
talented
man,
and
talented,
technical too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
technically
So
talented, and just his heart is in the right place. And I just did an episode with
Yeah.
him and Dip Tran over at Good Girl Dinette, author of the Red Boat Cookbook, and it's so fascinating to see the two of them, in dialogue and hear. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
So
and like I said, those are the people we like to promote from the
yeah,
background. And same thing with Nguyen. You know, um, we actually hosted his first pop up here in our backyard,
wow.
and we wanted to do that because
Because we
again,
saw talent
we
and
saw
we wanted,
talent, and we
yeah.
wanted, and we also have a stake, so to say, in the Vietnamese food scene in LA, and so we wanted to promote him because we think it could still be improved, and
Yeah.
so that was one of the reasons behind us sort of trying to push Nguyen and support him, because we still see LA Vietnamese food as an area that could
Good
use
improvement,
improvement.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and we wanted him to make his own food and make his own Vietnamese food his way, and so that's our story with
Yeah.
Nguyen.
It's so
So we pretty
amazing
much
that
just,
yeah.
yeah.
He's an interesting character too because he didn't study food. He didn't go to school for food.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like neuroscience or something like that. I forget
right,
the exact branch there, but he thinks about food in a very different way than chefs typically think. Obviously, he's had the training at Rustic Canyon, but his approach to food is very different. And then I think there's this other service side that we don't get to see, which is like, what do you do when you're having to cook for Elton John, right? Or these big producers of Hollywood that I'm not really at liberty to talk about. I guess I am sometimes, but not in public. I because there's probably NDA agreements that he has to do. But he is the top of the food chain when it comes to this private chefing here in LA for Vietnamese chefs.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. We pretty much just told him just come over and just do whatever you want. And then he made it happen. Yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah, our history of LA Vietnamese food is there needs to be more, but I think it's more of a numbers game, right? There's just much more people in Orange County, and so you're gonna get a lot of people who try and they fail, but the ones that make it at the very end is the best of the best,
Yeah.
and that's what we see in Orange County Vietnamese dining.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a bigger. I think it's not just about being the best. To be honest with you, you know, th- we see plenty of like okay restaurants doing well and
Yeah. And then
surviving
we
in
see really,
other restaurant niches,
yeah.
right? Like Italian and things like that. I think part of the issue with the Vietnamese restaurants in LA in general is that um, tend to be undercapitalized, and these are either passion projects that are undercapitalized to really do well. You know what I mean? I think, and often they're mom and pops is more is that don't have the financial backing. That really you need to really do well. I mean,
Let's
um,
talk about that. Let's
so
break that down because
yeah,
that's something that's very rarely talked about. I mean, you could be a good kitchen or a bad kitchen, but if you have
yeah.
that capital, that extra I mean, how do you even know that? Like, how are you exposed to that part of the business? Like, that for you to bring that
Again,
up?
because again, um, I guess I keep I'm no way associated with any restaurants, but I do know a lot of chefs. We do know a lot of chefs, both in the Vietnamese community and non-Vietnamese community. And we also eat out, quite a bit, and we cook as well. So I think in a way, even though we never own a restaurant or have that type of experience, like we sort of know what it takes, to really make a restaurant successful. And part of our and we love supporting Vietnamese restaurants in general, and so we would love to see a thriving Vietnamese restaurant community, but we don't really see that in LA. And like a lot of restaurants, like and a lot of Vietnamese restaurants don't have a great success in LA. In Orange County, yes, because the sheer number of Vietnamese people there is supporting them, but they tend to be again
uh,
restaurants that are that charge a low price for and low wage, and they're very they're not what you call aspirational restaurants, right? They're sort of like they're there to just survive and just make money for the day or for the for the week. They're not aspirational restaurants, except for I guess for the exception of Min and her porch and her Finakite. It's we would love to see more aspirational restaurants than than
But Finakite's
survival
not
restaurants.
even Finakite's not even Vietnamese.
Right,
Finakite's like,
right,
California.
Vietnamese.
I mean,
So
you don't get Vietnamese aspirational restaurants because of the price
right,
points. And people
Yeah.
in
right,
the mind
exactly,
of the public, it's like, I'm not paying $30 for an
exactly,
entree, Vietnamese entree,
Yeah.
right?
right,
Yeah.
It's just
And
right,
you
not.
see,
exactly,
and you see most of that from Vietnamese people because they know,
right,
like they
right,
already know how much they can get it at so and
right,
so. So I feel like the ones that usually complain about the pricing are the Vietnamese people,
right,
like that
right.
are
So
used
that's
to.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
another huge barrier that
Yeah.
it probably won't die in our generation, but
Maybe
Okay,
for
well,
next
let me
generation.
ask you about this. Is it because it's the intrinsic value of the raw goods, the raw material, the grain, the meat, the whatever the raw material is
yeah,
going into the restaurant? Is it an intrinsic value in the food ingredients, or is it a marketing, or is it a perspective that the public has that is not placing a higher value on
right,
Vietnamese food? Because if you think
Yeah.
about pasta, it's just
right,
like, how is pasta and Italian food
right, right,
outpriced, compared to Vietnamese food? And it's
right,
more intricate to make Vietnamese
right,
food.
They
right. It's
Vietnamese
definitely the
food is
latter.
yeah,
It's definitely the latter.
yeah.
And actually, we touched upon this a couple years ago when Tejo Rao did a New York Times article on Bánh Cuốn, and she came to us, and we as an example of why is Asian American food, or why Vietnamese, in this instance Vietnamese food in particular, so undervalued. Why is the skill involved so undervalued? Because she came over to our house, and we made bánh cuốn for her, and then she realized how hard it is, and how
Yeah.
to make. And
And it's
then
so
she
cheap.
she featured all these bánh
Yeah.
cuốn places in Little Saigon, and her question was, why is this $10 versus four raviolis is $24, and
Yeah.
so and it's much harder to make, and it's made like à la minute, right, at the moment, fresh for every customer, and so where is society placing that value, and frankly it isn't, right, and part of it is that either people don't know how it's made, and so we need to educate people more, and so that's what we try to do on our blog,
Yeah.
like this is
This
so
is what it takes.
when we
This is
post our Instagram story of like bánh cuốn, we like to show like, okay, this is what it takes,
yeah,
and how it's done,
how
and
it
so
should be
people
more
can
valued,
hopefully people can
appreciate
appreciate
it,
it
and give
and
more
pay
value
more
to
for
it.
it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and so yeah, I think it's partly society and not placing a good value on Vietnamese food, and because it is immigrant food, and immigrant
Yeah.
food tends to be
And I think
cheap.
maybe they look at like the supplies aren't as expensive, like it's just
Yeah,
rice flour and so forth. So they're thinking, oh, the supplies aren't expensive, but the labor and the skill that goes into
right,
it, not everyone can do it.
right,
So yeah,
right.
What saddens me
So
is
yeah,
to hear Hong say, this is probably not going to change in our lifetime. Wait a minute. We have to deconstruct that, right?
yeah,
Well,
I'm being pessimistic. I
yeah,
think
you
it
are.
is slowly changing.
Yes,
I am.
yes, but that's a sentiment I think a lot of us feel too. So I don't think it's a
Yeah,
exclusive thing that you feel that way. I think we, as the younger generation of Vietnamese in America, we do feel that way. And let's deconstruct that. Why do you feel that way, and how can we change that? Is it possible to change that viewpoint across the board, not just within the Vietnamese
right,
American perspective, but globally? The how can we change that perspective throughout the United States for people to see the value in the labor of the chefs and the cooks that do
yeah,
Vietnamese food? It's not easy. It's very
yeah.
complicated cooking. More complex.
Well,
Yeah.
I have faith. I have faith in the younger in the current generation of chefs and the younger generation chefs that you know that will carry the torch. You know, and you know, and I think you know, I think just over time, it's just like anything, attention to detail, doing it the best as you can, making the highest quality product. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it Vietnamese cuisine. You can call it Cali Vietnamese cuisine. You can call it whatever you want, but um, and try not to label it. To be honest with you, and I think over time, if you take that care and you take that excellence and demonstrate that daily and with your food, eventually people will notice, you know. And I think you know, that's really the only way. Um, yeah, because you know, I think like for example, if you take tikal, you know, like the way we make tikal and present it, you know, you just deconstruct it. You know, what can be improved every step of the way? What can we improve? What can we change? What we can, you know? And so even when we make that our tikal, like for you know, maybe a few weeks ago we made tikal and we added crispy rice to it, and then we presented it at the table. And we poured the nước lèo on it. You know, I don't know. Maybe little things like that. You know, is exactly the same dish, exactly made it the same way, you know, the traditional way, but just present it slightly different. Adding different elements to a traditional Vietnamese dish can, I don't want to say the term elevate, you know, because I think regular tikal is already great, but it's just
make it different.
Just add value to the experience, I guess. I don't know.
Well, no, those little things do help when you sit down at a nice place,
right?
And you know, you have this these details. They do bring a different feel for the dish that you're eating.
Just even like with bánh cuốn, you can choose different fillers. There's no, or bánh mì, you could put different fillers in there and
that make it special. You don't have to pay $5. You can, you know, I you know, you should charge $10 for a bánh mì, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Have you both been back to Vietnam? What was your experience?
Oh, we loved it. We want to go back as soon as, you know, it gets better, and we'd love to take the kids and have them, you know, see Vietnam and experience it.
Yeah, no, Vietnam is, I think, in some ways, Vietnam is much more creative than here in terms of food. You know, I think the food scene in Vietnam is just amazing, and the more we go there, the more we realize how stuck we are here in America, right? Because the food in Vietnam is sometimes so creative and
they have specialties.
It's so varied, you know, from north to south. So in many ways, I think the innovation actually comes from Vietnam, and you know, lots of our innovation here in the U.S. comes from Vietnam.
You know, this idea of stuck in time. Don't get me started. That is a huge issue, I think, in our progress as the Vietnamese-American, and it's not because of anybody's fault. It's just when you're separated from a you know, 98 million people, and there's 2 million people on the other side of the world, you know, and it's like, it's not like we are like continentally, you know, joined at land masses where we can just like drive a car or fly, you know, 2 hours to get to our motherland. We are literally separated by, you know, we're separated by financial obligations of flying and cost of plane tickets and lodging. We're separated by you know, our work, that we have to, you know, stay put to do work. We can't just go to the motherland and experiment or experience the culture and then bring it back and then modify what we're living through. And it's shown in music, it's shown in our food, it's shown in our fashion. And what Kim was saying is like, there's so much more creativity. It's a numbers game of 98 million people being freed now to do whatever the hell they want, to push the boundaries of creativity. Yeah, and I would like to see us integrate more of the cultural sort of growth that's happening in Vietnam, and I encourage as many Vietnamese Americans or Vietnamese Europeans
Yeah.
or Vietnamese Australians to go back to the motherland
Yeah.
as much as possible, so we can all soak in the modern the changes. But then there's a lot of young people that are really keeping in touch with the old traditions as well, and they're bringing it back, and all the retro music, the retro the feels of Vietnam's past is also being put on the put on, so for us all to see.
Right.
This there's a link that you have on your Instagram, Emmy Mira Ceramics. I was wondering
Yeah.
why that was so front and center on your IG
Oh, so last year, I think so last year or so, or was it 2 years ago now? The time really is really muddled during COVID. We had a fundraiser where so anyways, the background of Emmy Mirror Ceramics is that we do all the ceramics on our plates. The plates that you see on our Instagram is all made by
It's actually
made by
Hong
us,
makes it.
and I
Yeah.
make it, but also
Whoa.
sometimes I have my daughters help, whether it's making a little pinch pot or something like. So a lot of their dipping sauces that we have on display, like they make it.
And all the plates.
So we
Yeah.
make, yeah. So so we took some pottery and ceramics and learned. And so last year or 2 years ago, we had a Asian, was it Stop Asian Hate fundraiser?
Stop Asian Hate.
Fundraiser with
Yeah.
with the ceramics. So we auctioned off, raised thousands of dollars of our ceramics. So, I wanted to do more of it, but life's got busy, and and so I haven't been able to do as much as possible as I wanted to with that. But it's ceramics is one of those things where it's always there, even if I make a piece.
You
And
can go
then
back to
and
it.
a year later, I haven't finished, I haven't glazed it, I haven't, I can still do that a year later. So in a way, it's just sort of sitting in the background. We'll feature it when we want to. But usually, what I want to do is like, use that to promote good, because it is just a hobby for me, and I'm not in no any way like a professional ceramicist, but if it's good enough to feature it on my plate and my blog, I figure some people might want it. So
No, no,
raise some money for
it's
that.
beautiful.
Yeah,
The name?
And the name comes from a combo of our daughters' names.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The colors, the textures is gorgeous, and I think it's so cool. Say it again,
Yeah, and
Kim?
it makes the dish look so beautiful, and yeah, so just it's fun.
You guys are so damn humble. It gets me. I mean, it's like I want to hear more of this ceramics. You guys are so humble. I want to hear more of the history of, like, how did you get inspired by it?
I think a lot of things
Again-
that Hong gets inspired by is just like when
Yeah.
I'm like on maternity leave, like he got inspired to make bread because he's gonna be up at like 5 a.m. anyway, because he has to wake up,
Feed the kids.
feed the kids. So he's like, oh, I'll just start making bread so I can feed my starter. And then with
Yeah.
pottery, I think it was
It's one of those things where we went to a fine dining restaurant, the beautiful pottery, and that's often the first thing I check when a dish is given to me.
Yeah,
It's
if I
like,
look
oh
at the
wow, look at this
bottom,
beautiful pottery.
look at the bottom of the plate.
And so then I realized, oh wait, I can actually take a
he's-
class and learn to do this.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
And again, I'm fortunate enough to have some time to do it and the resources to do it.
Yeah.
So we learned and just then from that point forward, it's sort of like cooking in many ways. It's doing something creative with your hands, and so
Yeah.
that's why I naturally gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
Um,
And then just to be able to
and then,
I mean, he's
just-
not a professional, but being able to like pass it on, and just open our kids' eyes, like, hey, this is like really cool, and they're interested in it, and they want to do it as well too. So it makes it,
Yeah, I want to ask more about it. Because
Yeah,
it's not like just white or black pieces.
right.
They're like textured, colored.
Yeah,
There's like layers to the coloring, and
right.
there's a sort of a design element that you can feel. And when you place food on it, you could see
Right.
the details,
Right.
how it all blends in to the vibe that you're presenting. I mean,
Right.
how much thought in the design process are you putting into it, or is it just sort of like trial and error and you're just going at it willy-nilly?
Well, a lot of ceramics is trial and error. In general, it is a lot of error, more than success with ceramics, because there's so many things that can go wrong in ceramics. So, um, but in general, you if you talk to most ceramicists, they say a lot of the results, consistency is really hard to achieve, and a lot of the results are due to the kiln gods, and if they're good for you that day, then you have a really good batch, and the results will be really good. But you can literally, I've done plates where I did everything the same, glazed it the same way, but and placed it in the kiln. And once it's out, like all four plates will be slightly different. They all have slightly different textures, a slightly different like color tone, and but they were all done with the same glaze and same technique. And so it's a lot of it is I don't know, yeah, just the kiln gods and just the natural. When you deal with natural products, natural minerals and chemicals and things like that, we don't have that much control, which is another good thing, is that nothing has to be perfect. It's
Yeah.
it's when it comes out,
The
that's how it comes out.
imperfections
The
make it pretty.
imperfections actually make it interesting. Some of my most interesting pieces are the imperfect pieces. And so that's I think that's a great neat thing about ceramics.
It's kind of a metaphor for how the Vietnamese culture in throughout the world has ended up, right? It
Mhm.
started out as a very, very imperfect journey leaving the motherland, and today, we have the kiln gods
Yeah,
reshaping reshaping
yeah,
the way we've
yeah,
landed on our feet, who we turn out to
yeah.
be. I used to
That's
say
nice.
something that I think was really offensive to my mom and dad and the previous generation, because I didn't experience the war the way they did, and I didn't
Right,
experience the way their previous generation went through, the French, and I always thought, what the heck? We're like living in I think I was saying this in my 20s and 30s, but I was like saying, this is like 20 years and 30 years of, living on a vacation on a, we're exiles on vacation. Um, but that is something that I experienced was such a good life. I had a great life, but obviously there's identity struggles that I went through. But for the most part, it wasn't like crazy. It wasn't as crazy as they went through.
yeah,
But the kiln gods are shaping the way we experience culture. And there's not everybody's going through what I'm going through. And, all of this sort of imperfection in our community is what's so beautiful to record for me, to hear your
yeah,
story and to hear all of the food stories that are coming out and the film stories, the guys that make music and movies. And it is such a beautiful process to see people make their ceramics, quote unquote, and stop for a year, and then 2 more years later they get back on it and they pop it in, and it's just there's that process of stop and go and imperfections and all of that. That's really a big journey that our people are going through, and to preserve it and let it grow too and let it breathe is such a beautiful process.
yeah.
What has been the biggest surprise in your journey since you've both started?
Just meeting so many people,
Yeah,
right? Meeting so many talents and
yeah,
like meeting you and yeah, just meeting. We just never thought we would
yeah,
meet so many amazing, incredible people with so much,
yeah,
talents, and that are like-minded as well too. So that has been uh, a really nice surprise. It's just I probably met more people on Instagram than um, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've been to so many food events, food cultures, met so many amazing people. For instance, we started either in the industry and not in the industry. It's yeah, it's probably the people, yeah, that we've sort of crossed
Yeah.
paths, you know,
And the
and all
connections
with the
and
love of cooking, all with the
yeah.
love of Vietnamese food. And yeah, that's probably been the best
And
thing
building
we've gained.
friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
you
the
know,
money, again, even though we never really did it for the money, you know, it actually, you know, we did monetize the blog and we get like some income from it still from it. But, and so that has never been it, but definitely the people, the connections that
Yeah.
we've generated over time. And,
That's been really
you know, people
meaningful.
like Daniel emailing us, you know, like, oh, you know, it's because your blog when I read it in 2010, and that's why I went to Vietnam, or you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And again, and other chefs saying similar things. That's why I started cooking Vietnamese food and not French food or whatever anymore. You know, things like that. Like, yeah.
I think we are just getting started as a, you know, community of Vietnamese diaspora, and in conjunction with the motherland. The stuff that we're all doing, whether it's on the support side like we are, to the people who are actually on the ground creating, we'll start to see in the next few years the rise of the Vietnamese creatives.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the work that you've done, and I want to have you both back on to talk about, you know, more developments as we go on through the history of this modern Vietnamese movement.
Thank you for listening to The Vietnamese with Kenneth Nguyen. The Vietnamese is produced by Brittany Tran. Special thanks to Jane Nguyen, Catherine Nguyen, Tina Pham, Sydney Jamie, and Christo Trin. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Vietnamese Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube, where you can subscribe, like, and comment. Please rate and give us a review wherever you find our podcasts. Thanks again for listening.